Good morning. Today's lesson is on factoring trinomials. So when you factor trinomials, the first thing, the way that I like to teach it is by starting with a snowflake. So you make your magic X, you make your X, and then you put a horizontal line through. And then you take the top ones, get the first variable. So we put an N there and an N there. The number that goes up top in your X is A, which is a coefficient of 1, times C, which is 50. And then the number that goes on the bottom is positive 15. Now, a couple of things you can look at here is we make our two binomials because that's how you factor. And then this sign right here, since it's a positive sign, that tells us that both the signs in here are going to be the same. And since this is a positive number sign right there, that tells us that they're both going to be positive. And now what we need to do is we need to come up with a list of factors that when multiplied together equal 50 and when added together equal 15. So I always start 1 times 50. And I always write down as many factors as I can. And I go in order so I don't miss any. 2 times 25. Does 3 go into 50? No. Does 4 go into 50 evenly? No. Does 5 go into 50 evenly? Yes, it does. 5 times 10. And I would continue to go 6 times what? Nothing. 7 times what? No. 8 times what? No. 9 times what? No. And then 10 times 5. And as soon as your factors repeat themselves, you know you've gotten all the factors. And that's why I go in order so I don't miss any. Now, when we add these together, we've already multiplied to get 50. Now when we add them together, when we add 50 and 1, you'd get 51, and it doesn't equal 15. 2 plus 25 would be 27, doesn't equal 15. So we know that this one, a positive 5 and a positive 10. So our factored expression over here is n plus 5 and n plus 10. And that's why I put the little horizontal line so that I know where my variables are. I'm going to have you do number 2. I'm going to give you a little hint here. Remember I said that we always start with our binomials. And this positive sign tells us that both signs are going to be the same. And this negative sign tells us that they're actually going to be subtraction signs. Okay? So why don't you go through the steps and factor that one. The next one I'm going to do is number 3. So again, I'm going to go through the process. Set up my magic X, turn it into my snowflake. My variable of X goes up top so that I have my binomials right there ready to go. My top number in the magic X is my A value, which is coefficient of 1, times a negative 10. So we have a negative 10 there. And then the bottom number is my B value, which is negative 3. And now I need to come up with all the factors of negative 10. So you could either have a positive 1 times a negative 10 or a negative 1 times a positive 10. You could have a positive 2 times a negative 5 or a negative 2 times a positive 5. And then that's it, because 3 doesn't go into 10 evenly, 4 doesn't go into 10 evenly, and then we get back to 5. So now, which one of these, when added together, equal a negative 3? Well, a negative 5 and a positive 2. So, put our positive 2 there, put our negative 5 there, and that is in no particular order. So one binomial is x plus 2, the other binomial is x minus 5. So, put my binomial parentheses, x plus 2, x minus 5. For the third one, this one is a binomial already. So you want to look for common factors. You have an x squared and you have a negative 64. They don't have any common factors. So now we're going to go back to our snowflake. We're going to put an x and an x. And then a times c would be 1 times a negative 64, so negative 64. And then there is no b term, so it's a 0. So our numbers have to be opposites. So if we look through the factors of 64, it would be -1 times 64, 2 times 32, 3 times nothing, 4 times -16, 5 doesn't go into it, 6 doesn't go into it, 7 doesn't go into it, and then we have 8 times a -8. Well, which ones of those are opposites? And then they will cancel out. So we have our +8 and our -8. So +8 right there, -8 right there. And those are our binomials, x plus 8, x minus 8. For number 7, the difference in number 7 is that you have two variables. You have a u squared and a v squared. And the only thing that's going to do is when we do our snowflake and our magic x, we're going to have a variable in the top spot and in the bottom spot. So our top spot gets a u, and then the bottom spot gets the v. Okay? The top number here is a, which is 1, times c, which is 48. And then the bottom number is -14. And again, with our binomials, this tells us that both of them are the same. This sign tells us that they're both negative. We want to look at our signs. So now they have to both be negative. So -1 times a -48, -2 times a -24, 3, -3 times a -16. And again, when we add them together, we want to equal a -14. None of these do it so far. -4 times a -12. And then, and then a -6 times a -8. Well, which ones when added together equal a -14? It's -6 times -8. So we have a -6 down here and a -8 over there. And our binomials for that. U minus 6v and u minus 8v. When you multiply those out, you would get that expression again. Okay, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to try to do numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10 on your own, and bring your answers up to me to check.